Hi, I'm Per Holmes, and welcome to the Causality Story Sequencer Quick Start Tutorials. In this first tutorial, we'll get into some basic ideas, and then in the next tutorial, we'll build a small story from scratch. For now, don't worry about what button to push. Let's just talk about how Causality thinks about story. Causality is a new kind of story development environment where you work with the story visually at the same time as writing it. Here in the whiteboard, you develop your story out of beats. This is not very different from just putting a bunch of stickers on a wall divided up into storylines and acts. Each beat represents something you want to have happen in the story, like this literal event where an old lady walks out in front of them and they crash. At the same time, the script is made out of snippets, which are little chunks of text that express beats. So if we have the beat where the old lady walks out in front of them, the snippet is the actual piece of screenplay or novel or storyboard where this is expressed. The vast majority of the time, one snippet has one beat, but that's not set in stone. You can easily express multiple storylines at the same time to create truly layered stories, which we'll talk about in later tutorials. The whiteboard and the script are deeply connected. You can rearrange your story in the whiteboard and notice that the script immediately updates. Or you can rearrange your story in the script and the whiteboard immediately updates. Or you can rearrange the sequence in the timeline. Everything is tied together. So there's no stage where outlining stops and writing starts. You're doing both at the same time, and your script stays flexible all the way to the end. So now that we understand beats and snippets, let's look at how you organize plot in the whiteboard. Everything goes into lanes, which are like storylines or major categories in your story. Lanes extend through the whole story and every episode if you're writing in multiple episodes. And lanes collapse and expand, so you can look only at the levels of your story you're working on. Inside lanes, all plot goes into blocks. Blocks are simply boxes to keep related beats together. Here, blocks are used as segments of a storyline, so they're going back to back. But you can run as many blocks at the same time as you want, one for each sub-narrative. It's crucial to understand that lanes and blocks are not story structure, they're only organizational tools. Many people come from traditions of strictly hierarchical storytelling, where the story has to go through a sequence of mandatory steps. But while you're of course free to design your story as a single sequential narrative, Causality is exactly designed for parallel and layered storytelling, where many levels are evolving at the same time. Instead, major structure is done with structural breaks. You simply drop an act break or a chapter break into the story where it feels right. The story isn't boxed into segments, the structural breaks are simply overlaid on the story. So if your TV episode is turning into a two-parter, you just drop in an episode break, even if that means that the episode breaks in the middle of an act. It's on purpose that Causality doesn't impose a hard structure. The last organizational tool is groups. Groups are simply containers for immediately related beats or mini-sequences. You don't have to use groups, you're free to leave beats out in the open. But using groups results in a cleaner whiteboard, and it allows you to think of runs of beats as a single object. In the next tutorial, we'll build a story from scratch. And make sure to check out the online docs.